The street lights flickered weakly against the dark evening sky, casting long shadows across the quiet neighborhood of Surulere. Eric paced back and forth in his small apartment, the walls of the room seeming to close in on him. His fists clenched and unclenched, and his teeth ground together involuntarily. "Tobi, you dey craze," Eric muttered under his breath, shaking his head. 80,000, bro. Just pay me back. His phone sat on the wooden table, buzzing intermittently with notifications from social media. Every now and then, Eric would glance at the screen, half hoping, half dreading to see Tobi's name flash across it. But Tobi had been silent for weeks. It wasn't the money that bothered Eric the most. It was the betrayal. The image of Tobi stepping out of a sleek black Lexus, sunglasses perched lazily on his nose, and a gold chain glinting around his neck, replayed in Eric's mind like a broken record. "You mean this boy get money buy car, but he no fit pay me back?" Eric's voice rose, echoing in the room. His reflection in the cracked mirror by the window scowled back at him. The sun had been unforgiving that afternoon. Eric and Tobi sat under the shade of a small buka, sharing a plate of jollof rice. "Eric, abeg lend me something," Tobi said, poking at his food with disinterest. His usual charm seemed subdued, and his shoulders sagged. Eric squinted at him. "How much you dey talk?" Tobi leaned closer, lowering his voice. 80K. Eric nearly choked on his drink. 80 what? "Nothing, bro. I just dey stuck for now. By next month, I go pay you back." Tobi's smooth, light-skinned face broke into a wide grin. His pierced ears glittered under the light. "You know say I no fit do you bad." Eric hesitated but eventually nodded. "All right, but no try me o. Next month, no stories." Tobi's grin widened. "You too much." He slapped Eric's back playfully. Eric shook his head, bitterness calling in his chest. That next month had long come and gone, yet here he was with nothing but broken promises and Tobi's shiny Lexus mocking him at every turn. His phone buzzed. A message from their mutual friend, Dare. "Dare, bro, you don't hear say Tobi just buy Jeep?" Eric stared at the message, his hands trembling. He didn't know how long he sat there, but when he finally moved, his steps felt heavy. By the time Eric found himself at Tobi's doorstep, rain was beginning to drizzle. His knock was firm and resolute. Tobi opened the door. His eyes widened slightly in surprise. "Eric, wetin bring you come this side?" His voice carried its usual smoothness, but there was a nervous flicker in his gaze. "You no dey answer my calls," Eric said, stepping inside without invitation. "So I decided to come check you." Tobi scratched the back of his head. "Bro, I've been dead busy." Eric's eyes scanned the spacious living room, the polished floors, the large TV mounted on the wall. A part of him couldn't believe it. This was Tobi's new life. Eric's voice dropped. "Where my money?" Tobi sighed. "Eric, calm down. I go pay you. Just give me small time." "You don't talk this thing before." Eric's voice cracked, his anger simmering dangerously. "You buy Lexus, Tobi, Lexus." Tobi shifted uncomfortably. "No be like that. I get plans. I just need more time." Eric's hands balled into fists at his sides. You no even dey sorry. Eric, abeg. But Eric wasn't listening anymore. The room seemed to shrink with each passing second. The faint hum of the air conditioner did little to cool the fire burning in Eric's chest. Tobi shifted from one foot to the other, leaning casually against the arm of the leather couch, but Eric could see the flicker of unease in his friend's eyes. You get plans? Eric repeated, his voice low and cold. Tobi, you buy Lexus with my money. You no even fit talk true. Eric, na investment, Tobi said, waving his hand dismissively. You sef suppose know, if I drive dis car, my connections go improve, deals go follow, e go help both of us in the long run. Eric's eyes narrowed. Both of us? Tobi, I dey find my 80k, no be business partnership I signed up for. Tobi laughed nervously, scratching the back of his neck. No vex. I fit even carry you flex small if na that you want. Guy, na Lexus o. You never sit down inside. Eric's jaw tightened. He wasn't in the mood for jokes. I no wan ride, Tobi. I want my money. Tobi's smile faded, and for the first time since Eric entered the house, his eyes hardened. Eric, calm down. No be only you I dey owe. Abeg, relax. Tobi stepped closer, his face inches from Tobi's. I no care who else you dey owe. Na me stand here. Please, pay me my money. Tobi's gaze flickered to the side, avoiding eye contact. I no get am now. Just give me 2 more weeks. Eric's hand shot out, grabbing Tobi by the collar. Tobi, no play with me. Eric! Tobi struggled to free himself, pushing Eric back roughly. Wetin be dis? You wan fight me because of money? You dey craze? The room fell into a heavy silence, both men staring at each other, breathing hard. I dey craze, Eric whispered, his voice trembling with restrained rage. You no sabi wetin you dey do, but you go sabi very soon. Tobi chuckled nervously, adjusting his collar. Oya, abeg, I no wan wahala. We go talk later. Eric didn't reply. He turned sharply and walked out of the house, slamming the door behind him. Later that night, Eric lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. The dim glow of the street light filtered through the curtains, casting shadows that seemed to dance across the room. His mind spun with thoughts he didn't dare voice aloud. He picked up his phone and opened his messages. His thumb hovered over Tobi's number, but he hesitated. Instead, he dialed Dare. Eric, guy, wetin sup? Dare's voice was bright and cheerful, the sound of music thumping faintly in the background. You there with Tobi? Dare paused. No, him say he dey chill for house. Eric's grip on the phone tightened. Dare, you no go pay me my money. Wait, what you mean? Dare asked, the music lowering in the background. Eric's voice was flat. I mean say, I fit do something bad if this matter no settle. There was a long pause. Eric, calm down. Tobi na your guy since secondary school. He go pay. Just give am time. Eric exhaled sharply. I don't give am time. Dare's voice softened. No let this thing turn something else. I beg you. Eric didn't respond. He ended the call and let the phone drop to his chest, staring into the darkness. 1 week later, the Lexus was parked in front of a lounge on Victoria Island. Eric spotted it immediately, the sleek black paint glinting under the city light. Tobi sat inside, laughing loudly with 2 women as they stepped out of the car. Eric watched from across the street, his hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets. His heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing with the reminder of betrayal. He crossed the road, his footsteps slow and deliberate. As he approached, Tobi's eyes met his, and for a brief second, something paused between them. Recognition, or perhaps guilt. Tobi, Eric called out. Tobi sighed and waved the women ahead. Make I talk to my guy, I go meet una inside. The women disappeared into the lounge, leaving the two men alone in the warm Lagos night. Wetin you dey do here? Tobi asked, leaning against the car, arms folded. Eric stared at him, saying nothing. Eric, without warning, Eric lunged forward, slamming Tobi against the side of the Lexus. Tobi gasped, struggling to push him back. You dey flex with women, with my money? Eric hissed, his face inches from Tobi's. Guy, no be like that, Tobi coughed, panic flashing in his eyes. I swear I no forget you. Eric's hands tightened around Tobi's throat, his vision blurring with fury. Eric, a voice shouted from across the street. It was Dare. Eric's grip loosened as he blinked, his breath coming in short gaps. Tobi stumbled, coughing as he straightened his shirt. You dey mad? Tobi rasped, glaring at Eric. You won't kill me because of money? Eric's chest heaved, his fist trembling. Dare jogged over, stepping between them. Eric, leave am, no be this way. Eric's eyes never left Tobi. You go pay me, he said quietly, or I swear this go end bad. Tobi didn't reply. As Eric turned and walked away, the weight of his own threat lingered in the air. 2 weeks later, the rain fell steadily, drumming softly against the rooftops. Eric sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the ceiling with hollow eyes. His mind replayed the scene in front of the lounge, Tobi's coughs, the brief panic in his eyes, and the way Dare had to physically pull Eric away. But nothing had changed. No calls, no messages, no sign of the 80,000 naira. Eric ran his hands over his face, exhaling sharply. Maybe Dare was right. Maybe he had overreacted. But how could he not? Tobi was flaunting wealth like it meant nothing. His phone vibrated on the table, snapping him out of his thoughts. Dare, guy, Tobi dey for that new lounge near Lekki Phase 1. I don't know if you won't go. Eric's eyes. This boy dey cruise like nothing dey happen. Eric hesitated for a moment, but then reached for his keys. The lounge was buzzing with music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and the scent of expensive cologne. Eric scanned the crowd from the entrance, and his eyes found Tobi, sitting in a corner booth, laughing loudly with 3 friends. The black Lexus was parked right outside. Eric walked toward the table slowly, his eyes locked on Tobi. As he approached, Tobi's laughter faded, and his eyes met Eric's. Eric! Tobi forced a smile, raising his glass. See who dey here, wetin dey sup? Didn't smile. We dey talk outside now. Tobi's friends exchanged glances, sensing the tension. Bro, chill, Tobi said, gesturing to the empty seat beside him. Order something, relax. Eric's jaw tightened. I no come flex, come outside. Tobi sighed loudly, draining his glass before getting up. I dey come, he muttered to his friends. The two stepped outside into the cold Lagos night. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still sleek with water, reflecting the new light of the lounge. Eric leaned against the Lexus, his eyes fixed on the ground. You no get shame? Tobi chuckled. A cigarette. Eric, abeg no start. Eric's eyes snapped to him. You go pay me or you no go pay me? Tobi exhaled a stream of smoke, shaking his head. Bro, I don talk say I go pay you. You too dey rush. Eric took a step closer. I dey rush? 3 months, Tobi. You dey play with me. Tobi's face hardened. Eric, abeg no dey embarrass me for outside. Money no be everything. Eric's hands trembled at his side. I dey embarrass you? His voice rose, drawing the attention of a few passerby. Tobi, na you dey embarrass yourself. You no get conscience. Tobi's tone grew sharper. Eric, I say I go pay you. Why you dey behave like say I thief your papa land? Eric's fist clenched. You don thief more than land, Tobi. You thief trust. For a long moment, they stared at each other in silence, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. You no go pay, abi? Eric's voice was barely above a whisper. Tobi laughed, flickering his cigarette onto the wet pavement. Eric, abeg comot for my front. That was it. Something inside Eric snapped. Before Tobi could react, Eric grabbed the bottle from a nearby trash can and swung it hard, smashing it against the side of Tobi's head. Tobi staggered back, his hands flying to his temple, blood streaming between his fingers. Eric, waiting. But Eric didn't stop. Gripping the broken bottle tightly, he drove it into Tobi's chest. Once, twice, thrice. The sound of glass cutting through fabrics and flesh seemed distant, drawn out by the thudding of Eric's heartbeat. Tobi gasped, stumbling backward against the car, his eyes wide with shock. His mouth opened as if to speak, but no words came out. He slid to the ground, blood pooling around him, staining the pavement. Eric stepped back, his chest heaving. The bottle slipped from his trembling hand, shattering against the ground. Only the faint hum of the lounge music and the distant chatter of the crowd filled the air. Eric looked down at Tobi, his best friend since secondary school. The reality of what he had done began to sink in like a heavy weight pressing against his chest. What have I done? But there was no undoing to wait. It didn't take long for the police to arrive. Witnesses had seen everything. The flashing red and blue lights painted the streets, and Eric was too numb to resist when they placed the cold handcuffs around his wrist. As he was led into the back of the police van, his eyes lingered on Tobi's body one last time. 80,000 naira. That was the price of friendship, and now it was the price of his freedom. The courtroom was silent, save for the soft shuffle of papers and the distant hum of the ceiling fan. Eric sat stiffly in the defendant's seat, dressed in a plain, oversized shirt provided by the prison. His face was pale, his eyes sunken, and his hands trembled slightly as they rested on his laps. The trial had been swift. The evidence was overwhelming: witnesses, CCTV footage from the lounge entrance, and even Eric's own confession during the initial interrogation. There was little for his lawyer to argue. Seated in the gallery were Tobi's family, his younger sister weeping quietly into their mother's shoulder. Dare was there too, his face unreadable, but his eyes never met Eric's. As the judge's gavel echoed across the courtroom, Eric felt the weight of his fate settle heavily on his shoulders. The court finds the defendant, Eric Adebayo, guilty of murder. The judge declared in a steady, emotionless tone, "You are hereby sentenced to death by hanging." Eric's breath caught in his throat. The room seemed to tilt slightly as murmurs rippled through the crowd. The judge's voice faded into the background. Eric's eyes drifted to the stained glass window at the far end of the room. The light filtering through them painted the floor in soft hues of blue and gold, a stark contrast to the darkness that had taken root inside him. 2 days before execution, the cell was cold. The narrow bunk cracked under Eric's weight as he lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling. A guard knocked on the bar softly. "You get visitor." Eric sat up slowly. "Who?" The guard didn't answer. Moments later, Dare stepped into the view. He looked thinner, older, as if the events of the past few months had aged him. Eric stood and approached the bars. "Dare," he said quietly. Dare crossed his arms. "Eric, why?" His voice cracked. "Why you do am?" Eric lowered his head. "I no know. I just..." His words trailed off. "You know," Dare said sharply, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You know wetin you do. All this because of 80,000 naira. Eric's grip tightened around the bars. "E no be about the money Tobi betray me. You sef no." Dare shook his head. "Betrayal no be excuse for murder. Tobi dey craze, but he no deserve to die like that." A heavy silence stretched between them. "I be think say we dey different from all those wey dey kill person for small matter," Dare said softly. "But now I no sure." Eric swallowed hard. "I dey sorry." Dare stared at him for a long moment, then nodded faintly. "I know." He stepped back, shoving his hands into his pocket. "I no fit save you, Eric. I just come to say goodbye." Eric's eyes followed him as he walked away, disappearing down the corridor. The sun had barely risen when the guards came for him. Eric walked quietly between them, his chains rattling softly with each step. His heart was heavy, but there was no longer fear, just a quiet acceptance. As he stepped onto the platform, he closed his eyes. Memories of his childhood with Tobi flooded his mind. Their mischievous laughter in school, the countless hours spent playing football, and the late-night talks about the future. "If I fit go back, I for do things differently." The executioner's voice was distant, calling out formalities Eric barely recognized. In the end, there was only silence, and in that silence, Eric finally found peace. The moral of the story is that unchecked anger, betrayal, and impulsive decisions can destroy even the closest of friendship. It also highlights the danger of letting resentment and pride take control, emphasizing the importance of communication, forgiveness, and patience in resolving conflicts. Ultimately, the story serves as a reminder that revenge often leads to irreversible consequences, leaving regret and loss in its wake.